Good night, everyone. You are listening to Kaieteur Radio's The Lall Show, where we tell it as it is. On Monday, Wednesday, and Friday every week, we discuss developments in the oil and gas sector and whether your leaders are managing your wealth prudently. So, I am grateful to everyone who's listening on the radio and watching on the Facebook Live for joining us tonight. Just a few housekeeping tips. We will be monitoring the company phone for your texts and your WhatsApp, and we'll also be taking calls on 226-7453. We'll be monitoring the Facebook Live for your comments and your questions as well, because we want you to be a part of this discussion. Our Facebook Live is on Kaieteur Radio, that Facebook page. You can call us at 226-7453, and the text or the WhatsApp can come to 622-2222. I am Kimal King. I'm your moderator for tonight's proceedings, and we are joined by the none other than the publisher of Kaieteur News, Lall himself, and my colleagues who write oil and gas stories, Kiana Wilberg and Michaela Prince. So without further ado, I am going to put you on to the man of the hour, Mr. Lall, so he can open tonight's discussion.
Thank you, Kimal. Good evening, guys. Good evening, Guyana. I want to begin tonight by saying we have been carrying front page comments almost on a daily basis. I just want to let you know that our objective is to keep our oil wealth and the corruption that follows it on the front burner. It is also to send a direct message to our politicians that we know y'all games and we will not allow you to rest in peace. We will continue to alert our Guyanese brothers and sisters of how much they and their children stand to lose. An example, we carried last Sunday a comment, and I just want you to allow me to read this comment to you so you understand where we stand on front page comments. The headline for that Sunday front page was Guyanese lives not worth $300 million to Exxon Mobil. And here I read, according to Exxon's priorities, the lives of Guyanese are not worth a measly $300 million. This is the sum which a company is reluctant to spend to protect this country's population from the effects of its toxic water dumping into the ocean. This revelation was made by Dr. Vincent Adams, former head of the EPA, during a recent Kaieteur interview. Exxon refuses to invest a merely $300 million in available technology to properly treat its pollutive discharge into our waters. In so doing, it is impairing the nation's health. Instead, Exxon prioritizes shipping away the hundreds of billions of our oil. It prefers to contaminate our fishing grounds, threaten the livelihood of our fisher folks, and expose our people to serious health risks. Exxon's actions makes us believe that, as far as they're concerned, Guyanese lives do not matter. Guyanese environmental record does not matter. What matters to Exxon is the rape of our resources. This is happening, Guyana, and all our leaders are silent. Where is the PPP and the APNU voices? That's the question Lall is asking. And before we get down into tonight's tell it as it is, let us have this frank discussion. I just want to let you know a quote that I read today. It says, the world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without saying a word. Let's get on with this business, Guyana. Let's get on with tonight's frank discussion. And don't forget, the people who do evil, we have to, don't sit quietly. We need to open up our voices and let them be heard. Once again, good evening, and let's get going.
All right.
Where do we begin tonight?
I think where we should start is the lead story that we carried in our Sunday paper last, where we reported on ExxonMobil, a company that's operating here, and Total, another oil major, renegotiating a major gas sharing deal in Mozambique. And the reason the oil companies decided to renegotiate that deal was to cut down on costs and make it beneficial to all of them. And I think there's a lot that we can take from the decision to renegotiate this deal. First off, the point of a negotiation among oil and gas companies and governments is to make sure that all of the parties benefit from those negotiations. In Guyana, since the oil contract for the Stabroek Block came to the public fore, there has been a sustained discussion over whether Guyana is going to benefit according to the dignity of what it has from the terms of the deal. And I think most people would tell you, no, Guyana is not benefiting as it should from this deal because the royalty is too low, because there are so many provisions which do not protect Guyana in so many ways. What the point I wanted to make from this is that since the oil companies and the Mozambique government can say, we're renegotiating this deal so that all parties can benefit, the question you have to ask yourself in Guyana is Guyana benefiting? Is ExxonMobil benefiting? Is Hess benefiting? Is CNOOC benefiting? Is anyone not benefiting?
Let me add a little piece to you, Kimal. The reason why we made that the lead story is the talk since our governments would have signed deals with these oil companies, and they talk about we cannot have a renegotiation with the worst deal. The worst deal the world has seen is ours. And there was this big hullabaloo about we can't renegotiate contracts. It's set in stone. Now, we have been continuously talking about renegotiation, and let us have let us benefit, let Guyana benefit, because the deal does not give Guyana anything. The deal robs Guyana. The deal robs every single one of us in this land. And they are saying, our governments, both APNU and AFC, have sat there and said, we can't renegotiate. Exxon doesn't want us to renegotiate. We don't sign a bad deal. We have to live with that. I am saying no, Guyana. If oil companies can renegotiate deals around this world, why can't we? Why can't we? And just to show you how deals can be renegotiated, our sister country Trinidad and Tobago, the sitting Prime Minister, Mr. Kaieteur, in his press conference just recently was very bold. The man went and the man said very clearly, if a contract only benefits one, then it's not a contract. And I would like to play for you, Guyana, to listen some of the words that came out of this leader's mouth. And I only wish that you energize your leaders to listen and to take note of this man's word and how he got his oil and gas deals to benefit Trinidad and Tobago. Could you play that for me so you can listen?
The indications are that there's a willingness not to treat contracts as cast in stone. That while contracts bind us to terms and conditions, if the conditions have changed so dramatically and so detrimentally, then the reopening and renegotiation of contracts is a reasonable demand of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And we anticipate that our partners in this business will see our claim as a fair and just one. And we anticipate that there will be some reopening of contracts so that at the end of the day, we can all sustainably benefit from the God-given riches of Trinidad and Tobago.
There you go, guys. That's the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago saying that if a country only benefits one, it is a reasonable demand to have a renegotiation, to sit and talk. How much more can we tell our leaders about renegotiation? How much more? Today we carried another front page comment in which we said that goat bite us. Goat bite Guyanese, me and you. But my God, goat bite our leaders too? That they don't understand what is the meaning of renegotiation? That they cannot renegotiate? People renegotiate deals all across this world. Why can't we have a renegotiation? We must have a renegotiation. And that negotiation, my brothers and sisters, Guyanese, can only come from your voices, from our voices. So please, I am begging you, I'm asking you, do not allow this nation to become like many of those oil-rich countries that end up owing oil companies. Let our voices be heard.
You know, Mr. Lall, in my coverage of what has been happening in Trinidad, what I noticed is that when the Prime Minister spoke about approaching the oil companies about the need to renegotiate oil contracts for the benefit of the people, the companies did not put up this resistance that we're getting from Exxon and its partners in Guyana. And so a question I often ask myself is, what is it about Guyana that is causing these companies to put up such a resistance?
That's a beautiful question, and I want to answer that question. The contract, according to President Granger, when he was supposed to make the contract public, they said the contract states, and Kiana, correct me if I'm wrong, please, that both sides have to agree. And when he approached ExxonMobil, Exxon says, well, I don't have a problem if you don't have a problem. And that's how we got to see the contract. But the contract also states inside that both parties must agree upon every and anything, including renegotiation. So we have such a bad deal, the worst in the world, and our leaders are not saying anything about renegotiation. So that boggles the mind, right? And makes me want to think that this thing has gone beyond where it's not Exxon wants to do a renegotiation, is our leaders wouldn't want to do that. And you should read between the lines why they wouldn't want to approach Exxon to say, hey Exxon, this nation needs to have something better and we should have a renegotiation. It is deeper than me and you, that in which our eyes are seeing. If it's clear that we should have we can, if we agree, we can sit down. Man, why aren't we having that, Kiana?
You know, Mr. Lall, that's a very interesting comment that you made there. Yes, that's a very interesting comment that you made there. And while you and Kimal were putting forward your perspectives, what hit home to me just now is that at no point in time have we ever heard the APNU or the PPP saying, well, listen, we know that we have a bad deal and we have approached ExxonMobil. We have asked them to come to the table. Imagine we have leaders who have not even tried.
Very important.
They have not even asked ExxonMobil to come to the table. And that says a lot.
Yes, it's mind-boggling. And one should wonder why. Why aren't you asking? What have you gotten from them? What have you taken from them? I am certain you didn't take a paper bag, like what some ministers does do.
A brown paper bag.
A brown paper bag, in which when rain fall, it is bust open in your hand and things just fall. And I ain't saying mango does fall. You read between the lines, because this thing is unimaginable. If you ask a person who never go to school that, listen man, you have a bad deal, what would you do? They would tell you, well, go to the guy and beg the guy and say, listen guy, let's sit down and talk. Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister said, let's sit and talk. And you can play another clip there quickly for me. And let Guyana hear. Let this sink into Guyana. The words of Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister that went out there and said, no, you got to stop what you're doing to us. And demanded a renegotiation. And got it. Played.
That I've engaged the assistance pro bono of former Permanent Secretary Jackie Wilson to go out there and find our national scholars in certain particular fields, because we are reconstructing the Ministry of Energy and other areas where their skills are required, to give us a chance to be the best that we can be. So that when we sit down across the table from those who look after their shareholders, those who speak for Trinidad and Tobago, will have the wherewithal to be respected across the table and to come away with a fair deal for the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
My God. Oh my God, Guyana, can you hear that? Have you really heard what that man said? That man said he tell his people to go out there and find our best people and bring them on the negotiation table so that we can have a better deal. Guyana, you know what is happening here? Our leaders are firing the best of our people and putting square pegs in round holes. That is what our leaders is doing. Vincent Alexander is a clear example. The man Vincent Adams, who was heading the EPA, who got ExxonMobil to give us an insurance. Unlimited liability. And so many things he would have done. He spoke out. As a matter of fact, today we carried a story on him in which he talked about protecting our mining industry, the way the miners are behaving and operating, the danger they're creating in our back dam, in our mining fields. And he says, in generation to come, if we don't stop this wholesale raping and doing whatever they feel like doing in the mining industry, our children would not be able to even traverse or go in the mining land to look for the scraps that they are leaving here right now. And these are the type of people, our governments, both in APNU and PPP, is dismissing them, fire them. You know why? Because you are not part of my party. They are not looking out for the big picture. They are not looking out for us as in a national way. They just say, because you're not a party of mine and you're a party of them, you get out from here. And put in square peg in wrong hole. That's where we go, Guyana.
But Mr. Lall, if I can add to what you said there, and I really appreciate the time that you're taking to play some clips from some of the really thought-provoking comments that have been made by Dr. Keith Rowley, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And I'd just like to add to that because during one of my visits to Trinidad and Tobago when they had the Spotlight on Energy conference, I remember him talking about the incentives that are part of the contract. He was very critical of the incentives, saying that the incentives were so much they're giving away. They're practically giving away the industry to the full or total control of the oil companies. And in Guyana's case, it's way, way worse than that, 100 times worse. We have incentives, so many incentives in our oil agreements that we have practically given away the country
Yes.
to be managed by ExxonMobil and its partners. And the very fact that we can have ExxonMobil holding on to a monopoly of the acreage out there, the offshore acreage, which is over 11 million acres. And the fact that this company has no interest in coming to the table to renegotiate and give Guyana what it deserves for the exploitation of its resources. And the fact that the government and the previous administration have accepted that, it tells you clearly that it's not the APNU or the PPP that's running this country, it's ExxonMobil.
Well, I do agree with that. I do agree with that, and they have been running every country they go to. They have been running them, and if you never heard me say, one of the first thing I learned in the oil industry is that oil companies come to your land. The first thing they do, they line the pockets of the politicians, then create chaos, confusion, and instability. And while we fight, they're fetching away our wealth. And so when you can line the pockets of politicians, then politicians have no say, and they are in control. Whatever they ask for, they get. You talk about incentives, and Dr. Keith Rowley in Trinidad says it very clear, pellucid. The man said we give away incentives till we give away the whole country. The man says any incentives you give must be matched by its return. You can't give something and don't get anything. Nobody does business like that in the world. But guess what, Guyana? That is what Guyanese are doing. We are doing that. You know, talking about this thing pushes me back to a story we carried just today. I don't know if it's today or yesterday, about Payara, Dr. Mangal. Who did that story?
Yes, I did that story.
You want to tell them about that story? What the man said?
Yes, that story was done on Sunday for today's paper, actually. So Dr. Jan Mangal, for those of you who are not aware of who he is, he would have served the former president, David Granger, as an advisor on petroleum. And since being let go or having his contract terminated, he has been very vocal on a number of issues in the oil and gas industry. Recently, he did an interview with the Inter-American publication called The Dialogue, and their question to him was to provide an assessment of how the PPP is handling the oil and gas industry. And in summary, his comment was he does not believe that the People's Progressive Party is moving or has any interest in moving away from its track record of zero transparency, especially when one takes into consideration how it is handling the oil and gas industry, critical issues in the oil and gas industry. And one that he pointed to was how it handled the approval process for the Payara Field Development Project. That's the third project that is being developed in the Stavro block, and it's poised to produce 220,000 barrels of oil at peak period. Now, Dr. Mangal had stressed during the approval time, during the period in which the PPP was considering approval for this project, that, you know what, they should use the approval process as a bargaining chip to get more from the ExxonMobil deal, to change the terms, some of the lopsided terms and provisions, and to plug some of the loopholes in this deal. But instead of using the approval process as a bargaining chip, the process was just rushed. The review of the field development plan was rushed, and Exxon got what it wants, what it wanted all along, which was to get that project up and running. So that was the story that we carried. We would have carried similar stories, but indeed, that is something many industry experts have shared a view on, which is that the PPP should have used that process as a bargaining chip, but we gave away that golden opportunity.
Let me just add a piece on Dr. Jan Mangal. I asked him his permission before I speak, and he said, Glenn, go ahead and say it, Dr. Mangal was the key instrument with President Granger to release the contract. He told them, he says, listen, the people of this country should and must know what is in that contract, because after all, is the people's patrimony, is the people's wealth. And he told me the whole story. Maybe one day I'm going to tell you guys, but not tonight. He said, listen, I told him, I said, the people must know. And that's how we were able to. He convinced President Granger that, listen, Guyana needs to know. And that is when President Granger went to Exxon and said, listen, you have any problem I releasing the contract? And it went on. But having said that, how the PPP could have used Payara, hold Payara at bay, because you had them in your hand, and said, listen, let's talk, let's renegotiate, let's get going, we want a better deal. Use that. Instead, I read some today or yesterday, the Vice President, Dr. Jack Davis, talking about, he can stop Exxon from importing water. And Exxon and the other oil companies, them gonna have to use more or use goods and services locally. I'm happy that that he's waking up, or the PPP is waking up. But that is chump change. That is pennies. You understand? We should not. That crumbs is the correct word. She, or the entire government should not be focusing on crumbs. We should be focusing on the billions of American dollars, not dollars in Guyana dollars through local content. No, but they're not saying anything because, like you said, they have no say. You understand? So it's like you have to fight these oil companies for your own rights, for your own share. So it's not going to come to you. If the government don't say, listen, you have to do this, they wouldn't do it. And guess what, Guyana? On to now, 6 years on, we don't have a local content policy or provision set in place for the oil companies to follow.
Yeah, no, Mr. Lall, it sort of puts into perspective. Every now and then we get a press release coming from ExxonMobil saying, we have spent how much ever billions of dollars on local content. Mm-hmm. And Kaieteur News has made sustained calls for the company to give us a little more. Mm-hmm. Explain what you mean when you give this blanket figure of billions mm-hmm. of dollars, because now when you realize all of these things that ExxonMobil is importing from outside of the country mm-hmm. that can be provided right here, mm-hmm. you want to know what the hell are you talking about when you tell me you're spending a couple billions of dollars on
$70 billion.
Mm-hmm.
That was the last $70 billion they say they spend in Guyana. On what?
And if I can, just interject there, Kemal, it's good that you brought that. You brought that matter to the fore again. Kaieteur News was actually responsible for the nation getting a glimpse of what ExxonMobil calls local content.
I remember.
I remember a few years ago, the first public relations official that they had representing them, Kimberly Brazington. And she was at a conference that was held by the Private Sector Commission, talking about how much ExxonMobil is doing for Guyana. And she said, there are 300 companies that are supplying ExxonMobil at this point in time. And following that, there was a lot of suspicion. Who are these companies? Make it public. And when that list came out, you would be surprised.
It was embarrassing.
You saw Shanta's Puri shop on the list. You saw the Higgs Bosch. You saw Guyana Revenue Authority, GPL, GWI. You saw Maggie's Snacket on the list. You saw Border Market, Cyril's Taxi Service, ads to newspapers. It's like so many ridiculous things. Even the stationery shop that they use to buy their pens and pencils here, that counts as local content for them. Down to the $400 that they pay to go to the office. That is local content. And what is even more ridiculous is if their contractor spends a cent in Guyana, they count that as their local content contributions as well. And what is even more ridiculous is that up until this point, Guyana is yet to audit the local content costs ExxonMobil will have to recover. And every single year that passes by, we are losing the opportunity. We are making it harder for ourselves because the costs are not going to wait there until eternity. It's not going to wait on us.
Kiana, it's an insult. It's an insult to tell us 70 billion you spend on local content in Guyana and using these, if you put on ad, you said that is local content. Guys, that is not local content. That is far from local content. Local content is where you make a few dollars, not a few cents. But that's their term in local content. Local content is when you can when you can supply them everything what they want out there. All their pipes, all their fittings, all the technical work. They should have our workers working there, and paying them fat salaries. Don't have 50 Guyanese and pay them $1,000 a day, and you have 3 foreigners and you're paying them $5 million a day. But they run out and say, well, I have 50 Guyanese working there. But they're not telling us how much you're paying the 50 Guyanese. I always tell the staff, they may very well be paying the 50 Guyanese when the month come, $1 million Guyana dollar. And they have 3 foreigners that paying them $30 million.
That's an excellent point.
That's how they rob us. That's how they rob us, Guyana. So when them get 30 and Guyana get 1, you get 31, we is paying for that. Guyana is paying for that. That is coming out from our profit sharing. That's coming out of cost, oil. And our leaders is not saying a word. Not a word. So who is in command? Who is in control of our wealth? You, Guyana? Our leaders, Guyana? Certainly not.
I think what's pertinent to this discussion too is how our leaders have allowed them to disrespect our local workers, and that Guyana has a minimum wage, of $44,000, which, in my opinion, does not respect the dignity of a full-time worker in Guyana. And we have received news that there are subcontractors to oil companies out there that come in, they hire the local workers, and they give them that $44,000 a month, as if that can sustain a single mother for an entire month.
It's an insult, Kimal. This is an insult to have the whole world talking about you, and you have a minimum wage of $200 a month. This is unthinkable what is happening. It is just unthinkable that we are so poor, yet so rich in our in our minerals. It is this thing sometimes send my head in a wildfire when you understand what is happening and what these people are doing to you, and our leaders are extremely silent. They're allowing themselves to be controlled by these oil companies and these foreign agencies. You know, we should talk about the World Bank.
Okay. Before we get into that discussion, just please allow me to remind the viewers and the listeners, you can contact us at 226-7453. Just call 226-7453 and we'll answer. You can ask questions or weigh in on this discussion. You can also comment on our Facebook Live. And Michaela here is monitoring the company phone at 622-2222. You can send your text messages or your WhatsApp there. Okay, now let's get into this discussion about the World Bank. So a few days ago, I wrote a story about an experience that Ghana is having. Ghana is an oil producer, and Ghana has been receiving some support from the World Bank. Now, a few years ago, Ghana or oil companies that are operating there discovered a significant gas field offshore called the Sankofa field. And Ghana was also struggling with a lot of the issues that Guyana is currently dealing with. Blackouts all the time. As a matter of fact, a substantial portion of the population was living without a regular electricity. Ghana also had high costs of electricity, and it wanted to lower those costs for the benefit of the population. So when the country's government was approached with this deal that would relieve over 1 million people, it was excited to sign a deal. But what happened was that Ghana was presented with a deal that has a provision that would force it to pay hundreds of millions of dollars for the gas, even the gas that it did not use, even the gas that it could not use and didn't have a need for. And one of the things that is, I can say, a common denominator in the situation of Ghana and Guyana is the World Bank. The World Bank is our development partner, and it has been providing support to us through a loan. And the World Bank actually provided more than $1 billion in financing towards this gas development project in Ghana. And now Ghana, for instance, in 2019, I found that Ghana made just short of $1 billion from its petroleum sector. And in 2019, Ghana had to pay $250 million for unused gas. That means a quarter of Ghana's oil revenue from last year just struck out just like that for gas that they would not use. And so there are non-governmental organizations that are now challenging and questioning the role of the World Bank in this situation and warning Guyana to take heed.
Kimal, I want to explain a little what you said there in a layman's term.
Yes.
So that people can understand. What happened in Ghana can and will happen here if our leaders do not take note of what happened there. Ghana signed a deal for the gas companies to bring gas to shore, to power the plant, to generate electricity. And the deal they signed resembles a mango field. Nobody pays for 100 mango when you can only eat 10. What will you do with it 90? You got to throw it away. Or you got to hustle to give to your neighbors or to your friends. Nobody will go buy 100 mango. Nobody will spend $15,000 to go buy 100 mango when they can only eat 10. Well, that's a similar layman storm as to Ghana, what they did. Ghana buy X amount of gas that they don't need, so they have to throw it away. They just take a little and stick with it. But can they change the deal? No, they cannot change the deal because they sign that, hey, every day this is what I will be taking. So you can't change it. So basically, you're paying for the mango that you have to throw away. Ghana is paying for the oil that they have to throw away. Hence, the people says, careful, Guyana. Don't get into those type of deals. Make sure you find out how much mango you can eat and tell the company, well, this is the amount I want here. And sign to that. Don't sign and bring it here, pay for it, and gotta throw it away. That's why Ghana is losing $500 million a year.
Further interrogating the role specifically of the World Bank in this, the World Bank is an institution that on paper it says it helps countries to develop and get economic benefits and to be financially sustainable. And so the question I will ask is, did the World Bank not see this coming? And so in working tonight, writing a story, I found that the World Bank actually realized and acknowledged on its website that this project in Ghana got a lot of bad press. And so what it said was, we recognize that people are dissatisfied. So what we should have done, what we should have anticipated before we got into this, we should have anticipated that we could put up a communications project to tell the public how this project could be beneficial to them. And so the bank said that many of the benefits that we think you're going to get from this project, they have not been realized yet.
Kemal, the World Bank and all these bankers that hustling to run come to give you money and take charge of the projects, they are all in bed. They are not working in your best interests. They are working for them and the people who they are benefiting from. World Bank give Ghana that loan and bless that project and have the people losing $500 million a month. The World Bank giving Guyana loan. The World Bank give Guyana 20 million US dollars for us to put systems and measures in place to safeguard Guyana. Instead, the World Bank, and this is not Lall saying this came out of the mouth of Raphael Trotman just a few days ago. He said, when we questioned him on why he fired the Trinidadian that put together the local content policy for Guyana, to benefit Guyana, he said, well, the World Bank give we the loan, and the World Bank tell we who for hire. And the man come here, the man screw up our local content policy, put it to benefit the oil companies, and Trotman said, well, he didn't have no say and them ain't got no say. So you took a loan from a man, right? And now the man sent a man to help you, but the man ain't helping you. The man helping the oil company. And you call that loan, and you call that helping. And that's where Guyana finds itself. And if Guyana doesn't open its eye as to these loans that they're taking, this is like a setup. This is to benefit them. You wouldn't benefit anything, Guyana. You will be left with loans and loans and loans. It's like it's like it's like every other thing we do. Guyana looking for loans. Guyana looking for loans for buy drugs. Guyana looking for loans for build bridges. Guyana looking for loans to build roads. Guyana looking for loans for everything. But guess what, Kimal? Guess what, Guyana? And I still have this thing tingling in my brain as to the Canadian company that came here, walk into the minister and say, man, I want to come mine gold in here. He get tons of acreage, mining blocks. He go and he find gold. He call a Chinese company, sell what he get for free from us, our wealth, our mining blocks that worth hundreds of millions, and he sell it to the Chinese company. The Chinese company sits here right now over it, and the Canadian man run away with 323 million American dollar, Guyana. 323 million. This only happened the other day. And the APNU and the PPP is going to bank for borrow 100 and something million for build a Demerara Harbor Bridge, a new one. Can you believe this? If I'm not correct, or if I'm not saying it correct, they must have gone back and borrowed the same 100 or something million for the bridge that the man sell Guyana assets with and for come build bridge. So we have a double whammy. We don't only allow the man to walk away with our money, but we gonna borrow back the money for pay interest for the money to build a bridge for me and you. These are the kind of morons we have for leaders. You know? And guess what? No, those people are still there, and what will we get out of them? And I will be speaking on this matter over and over, not only on this, but on many other mining matters. But I just want to get going and get myself comfortable that I can speak perfect English so you can understand me, Guyanese.
You know, Mr. Lall, I wanted to add to what you were saying there about the World Bank, that, it's all a trap. And for our listeners, many times we would have our editorial meetings, and Mr. Lall would share with us every now and then some really important sayings. And one that came to mind while he was talking is that there is no institution, no university that can give you the knowledge that traveling does. And the reason why I say this is because one of the conferences, energy conference, that I had to attend, and I'm definitely not going to say which one, I was able to meet with someone who works with one of these financial institutions. And that individual had a confidential conversation with me about the modus operandi of financial institutions like the World Bank. Mm-hmm. And the person said to me, they said, Kiana, you ever, when you get the flu, you just lying in bed, you can't move, you need somebody to bring a cup of water to you. You need somebody to bring you food. You need somebody to bathe you. You need somebody to clothe you. He said, well, I want you to think of the World Bank as helping you when you're sick. Mm-hmm. Do you really think the World Bank is going to benefit if you really get strong? No. Mm-hmm. Impossible.
Well said. Well put.
These institutions will give you projects. They're going to come and give you a glass of water. By the time you stretch your hand to collect the water, the glass break and you get a cut. Mm-hmm. So you got to borrow another loan now.
For fix the cut.
for fix the cut. And when that loan come now, they can send a doctor. Now that doctor is a quack. And that doctor mess up the cut more bad. Now you have to take another loan to fix the problem that doctor caused. And then that person that they can send can be worse than the first person that they give their blessings to. And you are left in this cycle where you are never getting better. And if you examine it, and this is something that my colleague is going to embark on very soon, examining the effectiveness of the loans that countries take from these financial institutions. Are they better or are they worse? Or are they stuck in a cycle where they're just being referred to as a developing country? They're always a developing country. And I want, I'm going to mention this very quickly. We took a $20 million loan from the World Bank, embarked on a local content policy. And when we embarked on the local content policy, are we anywhere better? Are we anywhere further than when we started?
We're worse.
Absolutely not. Just think about it. Just think about it, Guyana.
I can share another little story that resembles the one that Kiana said there. The Chinese came and said that we are helping Guyana. 100 million we lend for Bill Airport. And Glenn, it's not nothing. It's a 2%. It's nothing. And I told them, I said 2%. I said, you guys gave us. You guys you say you give us 100 million. You spend 3 million on the airport. You make 97 million profit and walk away. And said, Glenn, is a 2% only on the 100 million? Which 100 million? And guess what? Our leaders think that that's the best thing ever happened. But I want to let you know, leaders know what is playing out. But there's a cut. There's always a cut, like what Kiana said there just now. And after that cut, there's another cut from an airport. They're going to come and say they're building a road for you for $50 million US, and them building it. They're going to build it for $20 million and walk away with 30 million US profit. Out of that 30 million, that is where the cut going to throw back. And the cut going to fall in here, and somebody going to get a cut here. And guess what? Me and you left with a $50 million deal, loan, to pay 2%. Them don't make 200%, and them gone. And they say, you know what, it's a good deal, 2% only. Our fools and our idiots, they think the Guyanese are fools and idiots. Like the airport, 100 million, they didn't even spend 5 million there. Not even 5 million. And they walk away with 95. They sift a few million here and there, and Guyana owe them 100 million with 2% interest. And that's the skullduggery and the deal that goes on with governments on governments and leaders among leaders. It's a wheel and deal they're going on with. And who suffer? Me and you, Guyana. Me and you is left with that to pay.
Okay. Thank you for listening to the Glenn Lall Show. We're just going to go on a break. We're not over. 1 minute break and we'll be right back.
Just give them a shot at another clip from Dr. Kaieteur.
I was saying, former Minister Wendell Motley did yeoman service in holding a team together, pulling together some of the best talents that we have in the country, to look at this issue, to see what was happening, to see where we at, and to see how we should respond so as to give the people of Trinidad and Tobago the best chance to have these resources, this business, these endeavors contribute to us. And today, I'm confident that all our partners in the corporate sector, be it BP, Shell, EOG, BHP, locals, I'm confident that as we look at this issue, we would all see room for improvement.
Welcome back to the Glenn Lall Show, where we tell it like it is. I am Kemal King, your moderator, with the man of the hour, Glenn Lall, the publisher of Kaieteur News, and my colleagues, Kiana Wilberg and Michaela Prince. So we've been having a great discussion so far. I'm usually at the position where I say, let's have our final 10-15 minutes of the show, but I'm sure Mr. Lall is going to want to go a little further. And we're all revved up to continue the conversation.
That's right.
So I think we are getting some questions coming in. But before we go there, I wanted to talk about a letter that's in our paper today. And it was written by none other than Kiana Wilberg. So I think Michaela wants to talk about what sprouted this letter. Could you go ahead, Michaela?
Yes. So there's like my colleague mentioned, a letter today written by our senior journalist, Kiana Wilberg, and it's actually in response to Dr. Clive Thomas, a column he wrote in the Sunday paper. So Kiana, for the listeners and for me, can you give me an idea of what prompted you to respond to Dr. Thomas?
Sure, Michaela. Well, being a journalist, it's a requirement that you read all of the daily newspapers so that you have an understanding of not only what your other media colleagues are covering, but so that you have a comprehensive understanding of all of the issues that are of interest to the populace. And in doing so, you not only read what your colleagues are writing, your media reporters, media operatives, but you also look at columnists. And one columnist that I have always been an avid reader of is Professor Clive Thomas. And as some of you might know or may not know, Kaieteur News, because of how much we follow his work. I remember once it was just before or just after the APNU AFC had won the elections. He wrote a column about the need for a state asset recovery unit to do an audit of all the assets that the PPP was accused of stealing at the time, and for the APNU now coming in to have an inventory or an idea of what is actually taking over and where those assets are. Kaieteur News was Professor Thomas wrote his column, but Kaieteur News actually digested that column and put it out there in a very thought-provoking format. And when that was published, that is when the former Minister of State, Joseph Harman, started to talk about the APNU considering implementing a state asset recovery agency. And Kaieteur News began pushing for Professor Thomas to be the head of that organization, as that was his idea. And so it became. So that is just to give you an idea as to how long, it's not today that, we have been listening to the views of Professor Thomas. And in his Sunday piece that he wrote, he normally gives his thoughts on the oil industry. He spoke about or made indirect references to the reporting that has been done by Kaieteur News in terms of looking at what our neighbor Suriname is doing with its oil sector, some of the things that it has in place to ensure that it gets the most for its resources. And Kaieteur News would have been highlighting this, and Professor Thomas, I suppose he is in disagreement with the comparisons that Kaieteur News has been making. And I found that his take on it where he referred to it as nonsense echo chambers to be quite hostile. And I am always of the firm belief that disparaging each other will get us nowhere.
That's where the oil company wants us.
If at any point in time, and I'm just going to say this now, if anyone listening to us, if you believe that Kaieteur News has erred in any way in terms of our reporting, whether it's logic or fact or whatever it is that you believe could have done better, we welcome it wholeheartedly. There is no one on this earth who has a monopoly on knowledge. And everyone can be open to constructive criticism, especially when it is going to help us make the lives of our future generation better than the one that we have at this point in time. So given that comment that I saw by Professor Thomas, someone who, I look up to and I admire as an elder, one of the elders in our society, I really was discouraged to see a comment like that, because Kaieteur News has tried on numerous occasions to reach out to Dr. Thomas, Professor Thomas, for him to share his ideas, whether he disagrees with us or not. We are not interested in just seeking out those opinions that are in line with ours. So that is what really sparked the letter that we have in today's Kaieteur News.
All right, let me just add a piece to that, what you said about Professor Thomas. He's the first one that came out spewing hot air how each family will receive $5 million yearly. He was advocating for that.
Yes.
And I really wanted to ask him which tin ear he pulled that money from, because the deals we have, you wouldn't even get $5. But if we, like I continuously saying, that if we have a renegotiation, we can have not only $5 million a year, Dr. Thomas, we can have maybe $500 million a year in every household. So.
Okay, we have some questions here. I'll direct them to the panel. We started this discussion this evening with the renegotiation of the contract with Guyana and ExxonMobil and its partners. So to the panel, what is your idea? What do you think is the best deal that Guyana can get from its oil resources?
From
in a renegotiation.
In a renegotiation.
Yes.
Well, Michaela, and to the person who sent that, if you look at the oil contracts around the world, and we did that story a few years ago, Kiana can talk about that, you will see where royalty stands or starts. And no country in the world we found was below 5% royalty plus profit sharing. So that is where we should begin to talk from. Suriname, our neighbor, got 6.25% with profit sharing too. So that tells you where you should throw your hat in, where you should throw your pen at. First thing you do, hey, let's begin here and let's talk. I am looking for 15%. I had, from the very first day, I had some banners printed that says 2% is robbery, 15% is royalty. And I used to drive with those stickers on my vehicles for almost 2 years, all over this country. As a matter of fact, I was told by one of Exxon employees, they want to know whose vehicle the big sign was on, and they tell me it's Glenn Lall, the publisher Kaieteur News. They're like, oh. So that is where Guyana should begin. We all should be holding placards. We all should be making stickers, bumpers, paste on your vehicle, paste on say come off 2%. And it's not even 2%. And what I want the person that asked the question to also know and keep in mind, we are only talking about Exxon, the Stabroek block. We ain't even touch on the other oil blocks yet. The other oil blocks is more stink That is worse than, that's things beyond high heavens. But we will get there. But let's go slowly, one by one. So to the person there, I'd like to say, let's begin. Let's begin with Suriname, 6.25. And then we take it from there. And we should get much more than 6.25 because our basin, what we have here, is so cheap and so sweet. We're the best. We have the best mangoes you could find on a tree. So why wouldn't you want the best price for it? You understand? Good. Kiana?
I'll go second. I figure Kiana's going to talk about the fiscal terms.
Yes.
I want to talk about the other terms.
You go ahead.
I think you decide what fiscal terms you're going to get for your oil depending on a range of factors, including the quality of the oil and the cost to bring it up and so on.
Yep.
But also, I think that regardless of the quality of the oil, there are certain terms in the contract that should respect the dignity of the country and the people of that country. So there are terms like relinquishment, terms for local content, terms for insurance, terms for protection of the environment, and in Kaieteur News' coverage of this contract, those non-fiscal terms, it shows that the terms are so weak and it doesn't give Guyana the production that the protection that it needs. And one of the reasons that is so is, one, because our laws are extremely outdated, and two, we had not updated our model contract when we should have. So when we did negotiate the contract with ExxonMobil, we ended up giving them terms from an agreement that was signed about over 20 years ago. And for me, that left me wanting. So I think Guyana needs provisions in its contract that protects its environment and demands more for the people, demands more benefit for the people in terms of their involvement in the sector. And you know what? Having good terms in a contract, that's one thing. But if your government, and I'm speaking to both the coalition government and the PPP government, if your government does not enforce the terms of these contracts, which they have not been doing, then there's no point in us having an oil contract.
Well said. Beautifully put.
You know, so I think that we have said quite a lot about 2% not being enough, 50% being a joke or rubbish. And I'm here, I'm thinking about that deal that we have, and to put it quite frankly, to say that the very question of what that contract needs to be a better deal is insinuating like there's something in there that's even good to begin with. They ain't got nothing in that contract that is good. That is not a production sharing agreement.
That's right.
That's probably an indentureship agreement, because all of the profits, when you come to think about it, that contract is for ExxonMobil. Guyana is being controlled and managed by Exxon. And what you're getting, you can't even begin to call it a profit. That is not even the crumbs of the of what's coming from the revenue for that project. Kaieteur News had examined over 130 contracts, real production sharing contracts. Not a single one. Guyana's production sharing agreements, you would want to think that it's from another planet.
Well said.
So before we can even get into what can be done to improve this contract, I think that we first need, it's so horrible that we need to change it from beginning to end. We need to change it from beginning to end, so that it begins to look like a contract, and then we can talk about what are the best terms that are suitable for a new oil producing nation that has a resource that many producers who've been in this business for so many years will never see for a lifetime. They'll never see it. I really don't think that we understand, to my colleagues and to whoever listening, I really don't think we understand what we have out there, the value, the vastness of it. It is an insult. If you really understand what we have out there, you wouldn't call the ExxonMobil deal a deal to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Let me just add a little piece to what you have said there. You said the contract. For me, that contract should be lit a fire and never put on a table to which you should renegotiate. There's nothing there we can renegotiate. We have to have a brand new contract, a contract that spells out clearly in which both parties must and should benefit a fair share of it. That is what my understanding is about a contract. A contract cannot write, and you just left out this, you talk about relinquishment of parts of the blocks, and we talk about the environment and these stuff. Key, important, when you're gonna allow the man to come and take your oil and give you nothing out of it, and when you will allow that man to walk away without even paying a cent tax, which is a must. Every individual in every part of this world pay taxes. Every human being pay taxes right across this world. Every company pay taxes, and you sign a contract that give this man the right to walk away with his share, and you country gets nothing. And you tell the man, don't worry, me go pay your tax. Me go pay your tax. It's like you allow the man to walk away. If the man had to pay 100 million yearly in taxes, you tell the man, go on, you go, me go pay that. It's like, if you're supposed to get 100 million, and them get 100 million, both of you are supposed to pay taxes. But if you allow this man not paying he $30 million a year, and you say you're going to pay it, it means that the man got away with $30 million of our money. And no part in the universe things like this happen. But all this is in your contract, Guyana.
And then for us to scrutinize their operations, the contract even has provisions that, in a way, reject Guyana's scrutiny. For example, the contract requires you to, if you want to visit their operations offshore, you have to give them a notice of 7 days before you can go there. The contract also says if you want to audit their records, you're only allowed to do it once per year. I mean, what kind of provision is that?
Kemal, that's what I say again. When you think about the provisions in this contract, and just to simplify for those of you who are listening, imagine you're in your house right now, wherever you are. You're sitting in your kitchen, you're lying down on your bed, you're sitting in your living room, and you have to ask your friend, your cousin, your uncle, your auntie for permission for go to another part of your house. And you're getting the permission right away. You gotta give them that permission
7 days
7 days
in advance.
And then when you're going around, they can walk around with you and watch everything that you're doing. Can you imagine having to ask for permission to go to another section of your house? I mean, it's just, and there are other nations. It's really, I can't even believe how other nations are probably looking at Guyana right now.
You know, Kiana, as you guys continue to talk, you know, what is even more ludicrous is that to check your bills, to check the cost that them spending, right? They are, you know where those records are being kept? Out of Guyana. Yes. Every spending is being kept out of Guyana, not in Guyana. And guess what? You go in there, wherever it is, and you gonna check on your own, and you have time limit to what you go, or how long will it take you to check. And this checking part of the contract, it gets even more sickening. These people, they are doing business. We found out that they are doing business with countries that have total secrecy. So if you want to go check a bill, let's say ExxonMobil buy pipes out of Israel, and you want to verify the price ExxonMobil paid for the price in Israel, you cannot go and ask Israel anything, because Israel locks off everything. Israel will tell you plain, Guyana, you go back to ExxonMobil and ask them what price they give you, that's the price they pay us. So you can. So what are you checking? You have signed on to the provisions within the contract that actually putting you in prison, Guyana. We sign on to that contract that sends us all to jail. You cannot check anything. You just can't check anything. This is why I'm saying that contract should lit a fire, and everybody should come back on the table and sit back and rework a complete contract.
We have a question similar to that from the Facebook Live, and the person is asking if it is possible for the government to stop production until a better contract is signed.
I'm a guy.
Oh no, can't answer.
Listen.
I ain't no one answer.
So the contract has a fancy term.
Oh gosh.
That's called stabilization. It's a stabilization clause.
Oh my God.
And that clause says that if you do anything that affects the profits or the economics of what that company is doing, and obviously if you stop production until you decide to get a better contract, well, then you would be interfering with the profits that company has to collect. Well, you know what that provision in the contract we signed on to says?
Oh, God.
If you do anything to interfere with that process, you have to compensate the company and its partners for any loss that it suffers. So, to the person who sent that question, yes, it's something that's in the minds of many Guyanese. It's something that we would love to do, but it's something that is going to cost us.
Meaning, simple layman term, Michaela. If you stop the people them from working, and if you stop them for 6 months, and they say they lose $10 billion US, that's a bill Guyana has to pay. And that's the contract we sign on to. So you can't stop nothing there. Has to go on. It's only morons. And guess what? Guess who signed these things? Lawyers. Lawyers. Sometimes I want to think that they are not lawyers. There are other words to describe them. Lawyers sign contract like that.
I think a lot of the times when we talk about the contract, we talk about it in such an abstract sense in that we don't always put a face to the contract. So the contract was signed by Raphael Trotman, who's the former Minister of Natural Resources, who is a lawyer. And oftentimes we point questions to officials like Mr. Trotman about why this provision was so weak or why the royalty was so low. And they all have this way of deflecting it to somebody else. So if you ask Mr. Trotman, he will deflect it to officials at the GGMC or some lawyers at the GGMC. Or when you ask him, why did you sign this contract? He says, I was instructed to do so. But you don't know who instructed him to do so. So no one really wants to take account for the position that they've placed this country in.
The predicament we find ourselves in. And talking about lawyers, Robert Prasad did say when they sign away the Kaieteur Kanji block, that he never met the players, he never know the people them,
Yes.
and he only meet the lawyers who sign on behalf of the people them. When we ask him who are the lawyers, he say he can't remember them.
Mm.
This is the kind of games your leaders playing with you. A matter of fact, I heard them talking about international investigations into the Kanji and Kaieteur oil blocks that is worth billions. And I don't want to go down into that contract yet. That contract, we'll be speaking on that. If you think the ExxonMobil contract is bad, wait until you hear about what is in that contract with the Kaieteur and the Kanji.
And so one person, they are responding to an answer that you gave Mr. Lall,
Mhm.
or I believe it was Kiana, about how if we stop them, we have to compensate them. One person is saying, well, pay it and change the contract and later we will benefit.
Oh, Jesus.
No,
Listen.
no.
Listen to the individual. By the time they're finished calculating the cost, you will be indebted to them for life.
For life. For
Hmm.
life.
Yeah.
For life. Meaning they'll give you this humongous bill
Yeah.
that it all of Stabrook, all the billions that is in barrels that is in Stabrook, it will outweigh that. So you might have to even go and find another oil block to.
You have to understand too that let's just look at it right now. These people, the company has already said that they've found enough resources to support 10 FPSOs, 10 oil vessels then.
Mm-hmm.
If they calculate the profits that should have been made on those 10 oil vessels, then you have lawyer fees and all these other costs that they're going to bring into it. By the time they're done putting all of that on you,
Guyana owe them for life. So you're better off.
yeah.
You're better off stick with what you have and try to get them on the table to say, hey brother, you need to look back at us. Like I told you the last time, the Exxon individual said to me, Glenn Lall, it's your leaders who doesn't have shame, not Exxon. And that's where we are at the moment. But I saw today or yesterday again in which Vice President Dr. Jagdeo said that he is he's going to check when he was asked about the international investigation on the oil blocks. He said you have to first check with GGMC, and then he will take it from there. Well, we will be holding him at his own words. We're going to wait and see when he finished checking with GGMC what went on, and let's see when this international investigation will start, because Glenn Lall will never come off from that. That's the only way I believe this nation will know and this nation will benefit from their rightful share of our oil blocks.
I mean, obviously, the vice president has already made up his mind about what happened with the Kanji and Kaieteur
Indeed.
block. Because in that conversation, that press conference, he also said, I can convince the reporters and Kaieteur News that
No, I'm not buying that.
that nothing
No,
went
no,
wrong
let-
here. That if you were a reasonable newspaper, if you listen to reason, I can convince you that what happened here was fine.
And he didn't even see the information as yet from GGMC.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. So you're saying that but he said those words today again or yesterday.
No, but I think what
So I am hoping
Yeah.
what he would have said there, right, would have been a wishy-washy, and we'll hold him to what he's saying here now. He's saying that he will decision, or they will make a decision, and if they don't make a decision, then the people of this nation has to decide what they want. If they would allow these oil blocks and these deals to just siphon off and go into people's hands, in which they are making hundreds of millions of American dollars and in the billions of American dollars, and they are now running to borrow for help, for buy drugs for you and stuff like that for you, then if you want to live that way, my fellow brothers and sisters, then that's fine. That's fine with me. But I am not going to live with that.
Okay. All right. Now we've had quite a hefty discussion. We've been going on for nearly an hour and a half. So we're going to bring the program to an end this tonight, and we hope that you join us again on Wednesday. One of the commenters who commented during our last Facebook Live, I'm going to remind Mr. Lall what they said, that if he wants extra time on the show, he has to pay for it.
Yeah, so he has a bill for 30 extra minutes.
So just to approach Tishana Lall the next time to pay for your extra half an hour, Mr. Lall.
Well,
So-
I'll ask Exxon to give me a loan.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the radio and on the Facebook Live. We thank you for all of your comments that you've been making.
Yes, really
And-
good comments and
Yes,
very interactive.
for tuning into the discussion. Let me allow Mr. Lall to give his final goodbye.
Kimal, good night, Guyana. I just want you to if you just join us, I'll have this program replayed tomorrow, and please do join us every Monday to Friday, 7:20, in which we will continue this discussion.
Yes.
So you can get more au fait with what is rightfully yours. Thank you and have a good night. Kiana?
Good night, everyone. Thanks for being part of the discussion.
Go ahead.
Michaela.
Good
All
night.
right. Good night, everyone.
And
Thank
Michaela?
Yes, good night to all the listeners. Thank you for listening, and we hope that you stay tuned. Well, join us again tomorrow and the following days for the other programs.
you.